The druid. And now. Have us run out the doors to take our council seats, introduce us. Okay, 6-3.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening at the City of Palm Coast City Council Business Meeting. Today is Tuesday, July the 2nd. We're getting ready for the holiday, 2024 at 6 p.m., and we are in the community wing of City Hall. I would now ask that you would stand and join me in our Pledge of Allegiance, and following the pledge, you are welcome to remain standing for a moment of silence to reflect, meditate, pray, or pause for a moment. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Please be seated. And I would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mayor Alphen.
Present.
Vice Mayor Danko.
Here.
Councilmember Clufus.
Present.
Councilmember Pontieri.
Present.
And Councilmember Hyder is absent.
Very good. We'll follow the agenda to a point this evening. We'll start with the proclamations. So I think I'll begin. And I'm going to ask the city manager to come join me, please. Our first proclamation this evening is a proclamation about our incredible Parks and Recreation Month. And the reason I invite the city manager here is because this is where Parks and Recreation comes from in our city. So I thought it would be fitting, and I would be honored, and City Council would be honored, if Ms. Johnston would read the proclamation for us this evening.
Whereas since 1985, the month of July has been nationally celebrated as Parks and Recreation across the United States. Whereas this celebration, led by the National Recreation and Parks Association, aims to the highest integral role that Parks and Recreation play in communities throughout the nation, including the City of Palm Coast. And whereas the Palm Coast Parks and Recreation, in partnership with the National Recreation and Parks Association, is promoting the theme, Where You Belong, showcasing the numerous ways in which parks and recreation activities build a sense of belonging with our community. And whereas Palm Coast Parks and Recreation offers a variety of opportunities for everyone from toddlers to seniors to explore, connect, and play in Palm Coast. Whereas during Parks and Recreation Month, Palm Coast Parks and Recreation encourages everyone to discover the sense of community that has been found in our wonderful city. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, that July 2024 officially be designated as Parks and Recreation Month. And the request that the Parks and Recreation Month, all citizens explore, connect, and play in Palm Coast by taking part in their favorite sports, visiting the outdoors, and spending time with family and friends. I'm going to turn it over to James Hurst, who is our amazing Parks and Recreation Director. This is truly an amazing team that you see in front of you, and we are very proud to have them in our organization.
I think we'll play a video really quick. Welcome to Palm Coast Parks and Recreation. We're here for you. For the families. For the friends. For the young. And the young at heart. For everyone. Here at Parks and Rec, we offer fun for the whole family to enjoy. Recreation is more than just parks and trails. It's learning a new hobby or skill. It's fostering health and wellness through sports like pickleball and tennis, or diving into aquatics at the local pool. Our department is full of unique and inspiring individuals from all different backgrounds who work hard to ensure our city's residents feel safe and welcome at all our parks and facilities. When we all work to plant that seed, our community grows stronger and more resilient. And that's why
You belong.
You belong.
You belong.
You belong. You belong.
You belong.
You belong at Parks and Recreation.
That is such a great video. That video was actually done by our marketing team within Parks and Recreation. I think Isabel is here tonight. So she did a fantastic job. So good job, Isabel. Ms. Johnson, Mayor and City Council, thank you for this proclamation for tonight. This is a great initiative for the Parks and Rec Department. We do celebrate our month, which is awesome for us. But I'd like to thank our staff, the guys behind me, the people at home. They work weekends, weeknights, 14-hour days, 12-hour days, holidays, weekends, everything to provide for our community. And without them, I don't think Palm Coast would be Palm Coast. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to all our staff and the great job that they do. So thank you so much. So to celebrate Parks and Rec Month, we have a couple of programs and events in the next, well, starting tomorrow. So tomorrow we have the Patriotic Party in the Park. That's going to be at James F. Holland. We're going to have some hot dogs, some refreshments, so come on down. Starts at 4 p.m. Thursday, we have the United Flagler Fireworks display. That's going to be at the Flagler Airport. Gates open at 5, and the fireworks display starts at 9 p.m. Food Truck Tuesdays on July 16th here, just next to City Hall from 5 to 8. We're excited to welcome back the BMX Trickster Show. There's going to be a big ramp in the middle of the road, and they're going to be doing some cool tricks on their BMX bikes. I think the last time we had these guys was just before COVID, so it's awesome to bring them back. And then on the 20th, we have Pedal in the Park, just a leisurely pedal through Palm Coast, through Waterfront, Linear Park. So we invite everyone to that one. That starts at 8 a.m. It starts at the Community Center and ends at the Community Center. But again, Mayor, City Council, Ms. Johnson, thank you so much for this proclamation. Hey, thank you guys for being awesome. You guys are awesome. Thank you guys.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Very good. One more applause. Anybody with you? Is anybody with you? Then please come stand over here. We have one more proclamation this evening, so we're going to move forward a little bit in the season into some cooler thoughts. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to get busy now, which you'll understand as I go through this. This is a proclamation of the City of Palm Coast recognizing the month of July 2024 as Christmas Come True Month. Whereas family poverty transcends race, religion, and ethnicity, and is one of the greatest challenges to not only the family, but for our entire community, which suffers the consequences of its many negative and depressing effects on our children. The reality is that over 40% are between families in poverty and those who are in an asset-limited income constrained, employed households and earn above the Florida poverty level, but cannot afford the basic cost of living in this county. Out of the 163 families with 468 children we serve this year, 40% have medical issues. Of that, 10% were disabled. 99 of those children have varying levels of special needs. Whereas Christmas Come True is a nonprofit organization that has been serving Flagler County for 15 years and has addressed the many aspects of family poverty in Flagler County, including food distribution, financial assistance with housing, utilities, transportation, furniture, home goods, and medical expenses. Christmas Come True has invested over $165,000 in assistance throughout the year, without including the yearly Christmas distribution. Since 2009, this distribution consists of a complete, personalized Christmas experience of a total of 1,831 families with 5,195 children by providing a Christmas dinner, new clothing, toys, gifts, and Christmas stockings filled with hygiene products and assorted goodies. Whereas Christmas Come True is a nonprofit organization in Flagler County that provides free furniture and home goods through their Begin Again home goods store for families in crisis. In 2024 alone, Christmas Come True has given out 12 beds and bedding, dresses, kitchen tables, sofas, kitchenware, and more. Whereas Christmas Come True is planning an expansion of their mission and support system by incorporating innovative community resource solutions, a community-based center creating the tools for makers, creators, innovators, and visionaries to bring their dream to life, a diversified, multi-generational collaboration to grow new careers and businesses. The high cost of living has resulted in many more families suffering a devastating loss of income. Christmas in July events will enable Christmas Come True to provide additional assistance with food, rent, car payments, car registrations, car insurance, furniture, and home goods to those high-risk families. Whereas this recognition also allows the community to support working together to create an environment where people can share their time, treasure, and talents to help the families who are affected by the devastating effects of poverty and the high cost of living. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the City of Palm Coast that they hereby declare the month of July 2024 as Christmas Come True Month in Palm Coast, and further recognize that it takes a dedicated community to stand together and make a positive difference. Together, we can break the cycle and impact the lives of future generations. Signed and agreed by City Council and myself today. So let me just introduce Ms. Nadine King, who is the founder, author, the administrator, and every other part of everything I just said. I'm sure she'd like to say a word to you, please.
Thank you very much, and I really appreciate you recognizing Christmas Come True in July. It is a month where we kick off our fundraising. We have fundraiser July 12th, and that is going to be at the Elks Club in Palm Coast, and we have Christy B., who's one of our local comedians and small business owners, and she is putting on a comedy dinner for us that evening, so please look into that. There are several other things that we also will be doing throughout the month, but we are asking you to kind of recognize we've got 4 months, really just 4 months to get everything together to be able to help these families. And just quickly, what we do is for somebody that applies for help, we sit down with them and personally go through everything with them. What are their reasons for needing help? So it's not just a willy-nilly. We have a group of people that are dedicated to talking to these families and being compassionate with them and their needs and what they need. It's just amazing. Sometimes there'll be a grandmother that just wants clean underwear, new underwear for her grandchild, because there are so many grandparents that are now having to take responsibility of their children, and they don't have the money for the things. So it's a lot of special reasons why we do what we do, and we're planning on trying to help over 170 families this year, which is over 500 children. So if you just close your eyes, remember what your Christmas was, and we try to give that back to the families, and we give it to the parents, for the parents to give to their children. I don't want the children to know about us. So that's kind of what we do. So thank you. Thank you for your support.
The next item on our agenda this evening is public participation, but I'm going to take a liberty first, and I'm going to introduce public participation in the hopes that this will help our visitors tonight in terms of the comments for public comment. Counselor, I'm going to ask you to, who wants to lead? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as everyone see that Governor DeSantis did veto the new short-term rental law. And so over the last couple of days, I've researched what are the city's options going forward with such a thing. So under Florida Statute 509.032, the state still does pre-exempt the city on certain laws being drafted for short-term rentals. However, the city of Palm Coast can draft a new ordinance if it seems fit to, as long as the ordinance does not prohibit short-term rentals, does not regulate the duration or frequency of the rentals, and follows state requirements for sanitation standards, inspections, Florida Building Code, and Florida Fire Codes, things of that nature. So if there is the direction and the consensus of this dais that you want to direct staff to start working on a ordinance, that is something that we can work through with your direction through the city manager.
Councilor, thank you. Council members, Councilwoman Pontieri, would you like to comment at this time?
I would, thank you. Thank you to legal counsel for that and to city manager for making sure that this is being addressed. This has been something that I've been harping on since taking this seat, so I'm glad that we saw a veto come through, and I hope that we can get consensus from this dais to move forward with getting an ordinance drafted. I know St. Johns County has a pretty good ordinance. I'm aware also that the county right now, the Flagler County, has an ordinance. So obviously, you know, we have a lot of considerations that we need to look at, and we want to make sure that we're being reasonable, but also really protecting the quality of life of our current residents and keeping in mind that they have property rights, and they have the right to enjoy their homes without kind of some of the disturbances that we've been hearing lately from the short-term rentals. So hoping that we can get consensus to move forward in this direction. I look forward to seeing what you guys can put together.
I fully agree.
Good.
My one question would be, have we, I brought this point up, I think, either this past meeting or the meeting before, about our ability to have a fee implemented for these short-term rentals. Have we figured out whether or not we'd be able to implement a registration fee for these short-term rentals?
I believe that we would be able to add that to when they apply of some sort, there could be a fee that we could add to that.
I would like, perhaps our city council can offer consensus. My feeling is that our ordinance is only as good as really the enforcement of it. So I think we need some type of mechanism for these Airbnbs and the VRBOs, maybe I shouldn't name them by name, but these short-term rentals to be able to fund that mechanism, that is the enforcement mechanism. Otherwise, our ordinance is just going to be kind of words on paper, and I think that's something that we should all have in mind. I'm not certain the cost of a dedicated unit for code enforcement, but all of the public that has come here, you know, we've heard you loud and clear, is that the enforcement of just the normal codes of Palm Coast is the real tragedy here, that it's not being upheld to the community standards. So does the council feel that we can give guidance that we would like to see some type of what we have available to us as far as an arsenal of fees and registration and service fees to be able to be collected from said short-term rentals?
Okay. The purpose of the introduction was to provide some context in advance of public comment. Your public comments may be different than that particular subject, but I thought it was appropriate to guide us forward. So with that, if there are no other council members at this time. Yep,
Yeah,
go ahead.
really quickly, I agree with you 100%. I will say, just for the purpose of maybe getting that further consensus for the direction, I believe the St. Johns County ordinance has it's a certain amount of time there can be a violation, and then at that point, either they lose their ability to rent out as a short-term rental, or they receive some pretty steep fines. I don't remember if it's 3 or 5 violations and what that time span is, but I do remember reading something this weekend, how that was baked in, and I absolutely agree with you, there need to be some teeth to it.
I do have one concern about the enforcement part of it. As you know now, with code enforcement issues, if a homeowner complains, their name goes on that complaint. I'm wondering if there's a way for us to get around that when it comes to this issue, because that would certainly make, and I don't know if there is or isn't, I'm tossing it out there for the legal minds to work on, because that would certainly make those in the public feel a lot better about complaining about something, you know, whereas now, you know, they don't. So I don't know if that's something that, because this is something new and something a little different, or if we're going to have to follow the same code enforcement guidelines.
I think it's state law now, is it not? It is,
It
yeah.
would be in this case too, you think?
Well, I was hopeful that we could have a dedicated unit that was just for these short-term rentals, and then potentially that could get us out from the whole reporting mechanism, that if this was just a code enforcement unit that was dedicated to ensuring that they were being upheld to the standards of Palm Coast.
That's your swell team short?
Yeah, it's swell team short, exactly, code, threat level orange.
No,
Okay.
if there's a way around it, Nick, I agree. It'll make life a lot easier.
So if we could, I would very much like to hear from the public now, because we may hear some additional ideas and all of that. You know, we'll obviously move this forward, but I think we've shaped the picture a little bit. So please, I will open up for public comment on any item that is not a part of the following agenda. Yes, sir.
Robert McDonald, Palm Coast. I've been coming to these meetings for a long time, and different councilmen, different mayors have all sat up front. Well, I'm getting to the point where I'm getting sick and tired of people in this city bad-mouthing my mayor. All of a sudden now, because it's an election year, we got all these wannabe people coming out of the woodwork and want to be mayor. That's wrong. You got a right to run for mayor, God bless you. But let me tell you something about this mayor that's sitting up here right now, okay? When Chief Berryhill has a major fire, which he's had already, the first guy he calls for help is the mayor. And the mayor comes right away. I don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, he's there. When Rick Staley had problems in the schools, when people were calling in bomb scares and threats to our schools, Rick Staley, our sheriff, was there, but the mayor was there too. But more importantly, when somebody has a major issue, a health issue, the mayor's there. And I know it for a fact, because when I was on my deathbed a couple of months ago, the mayor came to visit me in the hospital to ask me if I needed anything. I don't see anybody else coming but him. Now, I'm not campaigning for him. I'm just telling you the God's honest truth about what our mayor does. So you can keep the regs up north where they belong. This is Palm Coast. This ain't Jersey City. But I'm telling the mayor right to his face, you want to win that seat again? We got too many people that are trying to knock you out of that seat. And I'll be damned if we're going to knock him out of the seat. So Mayor, take the kid gloves off, put the other gloves on, and fight, because if you want that seat, you're going to have to fight dirty just like you were in Jersey City. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Eric Jostin. I am a year-round resident of Palm Coast, a homeowner in the C-section. I'm here representing a group called the Canal Community Coalition. We're a newly formed group. Currently, we have about 60 households that have joined us, and I expect, and that's just in a couple of weeks, so I expect in the next few weeks we're going to have considerably more than that. I'm here to talk about the short-term rental that are happening in our city. They are not operating on a level playing field with other businesses. Many of these people are from out of state and just own homes in Palm Coast. They don't care about our local laws. They don't care about our city. They don't really care what's happening here. I've been a business owner literally my entire life, since I was 10 years old. Many of the businesses I've owned, I've required licensing. Some of those licenses were very expensive for a good reason. I've been background checked, fingerprinted. I have spent a lot of time with inspectors before opening the business to ensure that the business was suitable for public access. Also, after having the businesses opened, in order to make sure I'm keeping up with current regulations. I've had to keep my building up to fire code. I've had to have exit signs. I'm not saying short-term rentals are going to get exit signs inside their house, but we should make sure that these places are safe for people to enter so they can enjoy our city. Part of the problem of not having regulations, I've received, in other businesses, I've received packets where I've had full lists of regulations where I had to I knew what to follow, I knew what was expected of me as a business, I knew what to expect from my customers when they entered the business. Hotels are a great example. Inside the door of every hotel, there is a sign that clearly marks the fire exits. It clearly marks the expectations that the hotel has on the guests. It also addresses any local things that may be a little different than what people are used to. I'm glad to hear that you're going to be working on this, and I certainly wish that I had more than 3 minutes to talk about it, but I think that requirements, restrictions, and regulations on businesses are actually a good thing, because they give the business owner, they tell the business owner what the city is expecting from them.
Good. Thank you for your comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, if you want to grab a seat up front, you don't have to stand in queue while each speaker goes. I appreciate it, but if you want to be more comfortable, everybody will get a chance to speak, I promise. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm John Lukowski. My wife and I, Carmine, live at 47 Christopher Court. We've owned property in Palm Coast since 2010. We moved down here in 2014. My daughter is a teacher here in the Flagler County Schools, been here 20 years. We relocated from Buffalo, New York to a nice community and loved it until this last year. I'm a member of the coalition now. We'd like the City Council to recognize us and listen to our complaints and our problems. Now that the new bill has been vetoed by the governor, your hands are no longer tied, and we'd like to see some action for the betterment of our community. So I've got 6 items here that I'd like you to consider for ordinances, and if I run out of time, I do, and then maybe somebody else will put it up. Short-term rentals should be required to post community rules in their homes. This includes parking restrictions, number of guests, parking on the lawn, the swales, the street, trailer parking, and days that are allowed. Noise ordinances, pet control, trash rules, and trash container management. The second item is these rules should also be posted on their advertisements on the websites so that prospective renters can say, hey, look, there's a lot of regulations here. Some of these owners are saying, bring your jet skis, bring your boats, bring your motorcycles, but they don't tell you there's no place to place your trailer. So this happened today to me in my next door where another renter came in and left the trailer there for 2 days. It was addressed because I took action. Consider adding more code enforcement. We talked about that. If there is no fee for these short-term rentals, we should have a fee for them. And if we have to add more to code enforcement, then we pass on the cost to these rentals. Consider periodic fire and safety inspections, and violations should be coordinated with code enforcement, sheriff's calls, animal control to keep an integrated permanent record. And then we see how many times these violations have occurred with a certain property. Temporary moratorium on short-term rentals should be voted on and passed until this has been addressed, is what we would like. My personal, you don't need to hear all the problems I've had. My personal experience is we have neighbors next door at 49 Christopher Court. We have neighbors at 51. 51 sold. Another neighbor bought it. They told us we're going to stay here for 6 months. They bought 4 units in our area. And my neighbor next door could not take it anymore. She left. Guess what happened? Another short-term rental. So now I've got 2 right next door to me, and there's code violations all the time with the one on 51, and I need them addressed. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, and if you want to share your notes with the Director of Communications in the back, if you didn't get through it, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Next speaker.
Now.
There you go. Next, yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Cameron Orr. I'm on Comanche Court.
Just pull that just a little bit closer so the folks on virtual can hear. Thank you.
If you want to put it, if you want to put it up on the.
Too.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, before I start my remarks, I'm glad to see us recognize Parks and Rec. I take part of our dog parks almost every day, and they're wonderful. It's good to see them recognized. My wife and I are, like many of the others here, experiencing all the problems with the short-term rentals. 2 years ago, we had none in our neighborhood. Today, we have 5 within a half a mile of our house. We experience all the problems, boat trailers and trucks parked in the yards all weekend, party noise, trash left out, all the things that we've heard of. I believe that as currently structured, our code enforcement is ineffective in addressing this, more from a policy standpoint of giving people 48 hours to respond. It needs to be an immediate response. And I believe that the staffing needs to be 24/7. A lot of the complaints that come in are 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock, noise complaints and the like. I also think we need to address the issue with the Sheriff's Department. My discussions with them that there's only 2 decibel meters in the whole county. They're typically kept down at headquarters, which means if a Palm Coast has a noise complaint, they've got to go down to Route 100, get one, and come back. I would suggest that we get one put at the Palm Coast precinct. Of the 5 rentals that are within a half a mile of my house, 2 of those are currently listed as homesteaded properties on the tax rolls. That took me about 15 minutes to research. So I would strongly suggest that we do some more research within the city on who's homesteading these properties yet still doing them as short-term rentals. I would suggest that we do a short-term moratorium on immediately on short-term rentals till we can get through a review of the ordinances and some of the suggestions for improvements. We need to address the policies with the code enforcement. I like the idea of a dedicated unit, 24/7, something to do with immediate fines, not 48 hours to respond. Oftentimes the renters are long gone by that time. I think we need to assure better communication amongst government entities, code enforcement, and the tax assessor, who's homesteading properties and yet renting them out on a short-term basis. So I'm glad to see that we've got some support amongst all the council, city manager and the mayor, and not just our honorable councilwoman from District 2. It's not a District 2 problem, it's a Palm Coast problem. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Jeffrey Seib. First, I'd just like to say I agree with the folks on the short-term rentals, and I think it's great to see you all here tonight petitioning your government, let them know what's going on, and they're trying to do things. But on a different note, the recent discussion of the city's lobbying efforts in Tallahassee did not help me to better understand the prioritizing of the appropriation funds Palm Coast was granted and those denied. I did see the documents that the city submitted to the lobbyists with the Matanzas Loop extension included, along with other items such as the YMCA and wastewater plant and drainage improvements. What I don't get, and what was not adequately explained by the lobbyists, was the ranking of the projects and the eventual $80 million funding for the Matanzas Loop Road and essentially nothing for other projects. It wasn't a throw the spaghetti against the wall and whatever sticks gets first priority. Someone wanted it this way. I did not see any prioritizing of the loop roadway in any city council documents. Yes, I guess we are happy with that dollar amount coming to us here in Palm Coast, but we have such needs here in the city right now, which most likely are going to require a tax increase this year, that some of that $80 million, if appropriated differently, would have helped with those needs and maybe even would have allowed a lower tax increase than what seems to be on the horizon. The city has already been spending some of the annual budget funds on this roadway, and most likely more will be allocated to this huge project. In addition, city staff will no doubt be distracted, if not fully removed from doing the things that we need done here in this part of town at an increasing rate as the population grows. The roads, the drainage, the sheriff's office needs, not to mention the sports field for recreation, and most unlikely, a pool for those who swim for health benefits and special needs people that can only exercise in an aquatic environment and not the beach. So we see the work will begin, taking years and years more before we receive a penny in ad valorem receipts, while we, the people, will be receiving tax increases for the foreseeable future. It could have been done differently.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm John Jennis. I've been a resident since July 13, 2004. I've scripted some things just to give you an idea of what we're going through with these two next to us. Not solutions, but I'm going to read my scripted thing that I prepared. Okay. It's been a nice place to live until these vacation rentals stormed in. We currently have 7 within walking distance. We have 2 bordering us, 1 behind and 1 in front. These 2 party houses have bright night lights, screaming, doors slamming, loud music, drugs, drinking, piles of garbage left out all week, multiple cars, trucks, alarms, and disoriented dogs barking all hours of the evening and day. We see all this from front row seats. I currently went out to my mailbox and caught people smoking drugs, and it wasn't marijuana, out of view from the host's cameras. These people arrive like tornadoes, bringing in food, cases of booze. Most do not support local businesses at all. Many of these people never even leave the house for the entire stay. When they finally check out, a fresh new energetic group barrels in the same day and continues the madness. So it never ends for us. This never ends. Airbnb and other platforms are battling to subdue this party house image. They are spending a fortune with legal terms to keep the money machine running, but this is what they are producing, party houses. Whole house rentals are unsupervised. Actual motels have 24-hour attendance and close down the pool at night so all the guests can get some rest. Most commercial pools have lifeguards for safety and order. What we have seen at these two nightmare houses surrounding us would never be permitted in public pools. We searched for a quiet place and did all our homework 20 years ago. It was a nice, quiet cul-de-sac. Before all this, it was really quiet and beautiful. The house next to me has the nerve to write quiet cul-de-sac in their Airbnb listing. We now realize that when we decide to sell our home to escape this nightmare situation, prospective buyers may discover this is not the dream place to raise their family. It's a deal killer. We wouldn't buy here now either, and we're worried that the value of our property will drop due to this invasion. Nobody wants to live next to these party houses, and ask anybody who does live next to one. Nobody wants to live next to this. The new owners of these two houses are both 1,000 miles away. One is in Connecticut, one is in Long Island. They reap the profits and do not have to deal with any of these issues. Their profits are benefiting other areas far from Palm Coast. Short-term rentals are a business and should be treated as such. Where is the protection of residential zoning laws? Can I convert my home into a restaurant or shop to make money too? We no longer feel safe in our home, and our safety, peace, and tranquility have all been stolen.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Mike Solera, I'm in the C section. Some of the guys people have gone over some of the stuff I was going to go over, but I'll go over it anyways. For one thing, about with code enforcement, maybe they could pay overtime and let those people work overtime and still have more coverage instead of hiring more people if the city can't afford to do that. Maybe they can afford to do the overtime at the peaks when there's like 4th of July or something. There's going to be a lot more going on. And maybe the police too also. I'd like to see that when people check in, that anybody over 18 has to register their name and their address, just like you would go into a motel or hotel. So at least you have who's coming and going. And then they shouldn't allow anybody other than those people that are registered that are over 18. Just to keep it safe, because we don't know who's coming and going. I have one on my street. We've had issues with trespassing. We've had issues with trailers and stuff being left on the property where, overnight. The noise, the neighbor asked them to please be quiet. When they left, they threw beer bottles in his house. They gave him the finger. They cussed at him. Their kids are going up and down the seawall, and they're fishing, and they hit his boat with a sinker and stuff. Let's see what else I got. And I think that, if there should be some kind of repercussion against the owner that owns it and the people that are staying there. Maybe if they had something where if you get a violation, then they're going to charge you a $100 fine or $200 fine or something like that to keep them so that, they kind of abide by what's said. Because a lot of the houses have a placard that says you can't do this and this. And when, they drink and stuff, they're going to do whatever they want to do. They're going to be there a couple days, they're going to leave, and they don't really care. So I still would like to see something done on the canals. I live on a canal. These boats are coming. They're bringing boats from out wherever they come from. The boats are going fast, making a larger wake than they should be. They got kids they don't have life jackets on that should have life jackets on. They got people hanging over the bow with their feet where if they fall over, So I'd like to see maybe the sheriff put some patrol from time to time on the canals, not just on the intercoastal. And maybe, that would slow that down or put a stop to it. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it. Like code enforcement, I know that I talked to someone and they said that they're proactive on a lot of stuff. So I'm hoping that maybe they can become more proactive if we either get more people or if they can pay overtime and have them around so that they can, patrol the area. People aren't going to want to call in and give their names and stuff because of retribution from somebody else. To me, I think that's a crazy law, but it's the law. So if there's a way around it, it'd be great if we could figure something out and do it. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Aida Fureio. First of all, I want to make it clear that I do not come here in front of the board with unrealistic demands or concerns, and I will be short. I moved to this wonderful city over 20 years ago. With lots of time and effort, I created in my backyard some type of a peaceful retreat with lots of flowers, vegetation, and a gazebo, attracting birds and some other kind of wildlife. There, I could relax or read a book while listening to the birds and the soothing sounds of a water fountain. Now, since they allowed these short rentals instead of listening to the sounds of nature, I hear screams, loud noises, and occasionally two different types of music, not to mention the foul language at times. Also very frustrating having someone ringing at your door at almost 1 a.m. with a food delivery and say, oops, wrong address, this is for next door. Lately, if I want just to go to Mile and I and not to be aggravated with the back or the next door noises, sadly, I have to grab a pair of earplugs. Finally, another of my concerns is the valuation of my property, taking in consideration that besides the 2 short rentals near my house that I mentioned before, there are also another 3 at a walking distance. At my age, I just wish I could have back the quality of life that I had before and enjoy the remaining years of my life. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you for your comment. The next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is John Furão. If you realize by the last name, the previous speaker is my wife of 53 years. And mainly we are here looking for a shoulder to cry. I am a Palm Coast resident for over 20 years and at the present location on Cimarron Drive since 2005. This is the first time that I address the council, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity. I raise my voice today because I share some concernings and issues related to the short-term rentals that have been highlighted by other speakers, not only today, but also in other meetings. One of my main concerns, besides the quality of life issues with noise, garbage, and other code enforcement violations, is the concentration of these properties by allowing so many business in residential area. Using Cimarron Drive as an example, as we enter from Palm Harbor Parkway, we have number 2 Collingwood, number 4 Cimarron Drive, number 9 Cimarron Drive, 20 Central Place, and 5 Central Place and Center Place. This means that in less than half a mile, we have 5 of these short-term rentals. We all have heard the expression, not in my backyard. In my particular case, I have it not only in my back, but also on my right side. I believe that everyone deserves to have their rights respected. How can anyone enjoy them on your property, lanai, pool, or gazebo, or have a normal conversation, enjoy a meal, or read a book, when sometimes you have 2 separate parties going on at the same time with 2 different kinds of loud music, kids screaming, or adults using improper language all afternoon and sometimes very late at night. Sure, we can always call the police and notify code enforcement. I have great respect for these public servants, and I would like to take this opportunity to salute and thank them for their service and dedication. Most of the times, we either endure these problems or move inside of our house. We also try to avoid making these calls, taking in consideration the answering office could be responding to an accident or preventing some more serious crime. And my time is run up. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. Caroline Johnson, Palm Coast. I'm the director of Smart Animal Rescue. I've been dealing with the city for roughly 6 to 9 months trying to get an approval of a Rainbow Bridge project as a pet memorial at Holland Park is kind of where we narrowed things down as a place that it can be. Looking for a place as a rescue that focuses on mostly abused and dumped dogs. We work very closely with city animal control, taking a lot of their abuse and neglect cases. some of those dogs need to be euthanized after abuse. So we'd like a place that we can kind of have families to do a memorial for their dogs, cats, dogs, any kind of pets. I sent an email to you all. I'm not sure if everybody got it. I did get a few responses. But I do have some printouts here as well, another email I can send if I need to. More so with the plan. We had a plan already drawn up by a contractor. There seems to be a positive response to it. The last response I got is that we need to get the council's approval for that. So I'm looking to see if you guys can kind of get that in discussion and help us move that forward. We're ready to move forward with it. We would cover all expenses of that, get any liability insurance, anything that's needed. We tossed up the ideas of safety issues, making sure that with the landscaping and the bridge, everything is wheelchair accessible, so that all safety hazards would be dealt with that. But Palm Coast is Flagler County in general is a very pet-friendly community. So I think it'd be nice to bring a memorial area for our pets, and especially with us seeing a big number of abused and dumped, injured pets that don't make it nowadays. So thank you for your consideration
Very
with
good.
that.
And if you'll pass your materials to the clerk for us, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
I will definitely read one of those. Thank you.
Mayor and council members, thank you. My name is Dr. Stephanie Jostin. I am a clinical psychologist that just recently moved this year to Palm Coast. Specifically, I'm speaking on behalf of the Canal Community Coalition and the concerns and impact of problems associated with short-term rentals on the residents and families. Specifically, there's stress, anxiety, discouragement, and feelings of helplessness. I'm glad that I am speaking behind all of these other people. I find it disheartening and even heartbreaking to hear that people are living like prisoners in their homes in beautiful Palm Coast that I just moved to, and some that I've heard now tonight before speaking are thinking of leaving and selling their homes. Research shows that living peacefully among our neighbors, liking and respecting one another is important when people live in close proximity. In the Canal C-section, our proximity is even closer. We have more neighbors than most because noise travels across water. It is amplified. So if we think about people having 4 neighbors, in front, behind, and to side, we have almost 3 neighbors across, and thinking of the noise across the street with the water. I don't even want to talk about what I wrote down here about noise on the canals, parties, 40 people in the homes having celebrations, cars lined up and down the streets. One resident recently shared at the coalition that her adult daughter and her granddaughter are no longer going to stay in her home when they visit and will stay in a hotel due to not being able to feel safe or get a good night's sleep. Not only is there a problem with noise, but behavior. We just heard people speaking about drugs, dogs, vehicles, and whatnot. When people are stressed out, noise, I could speak days about the amount of stress that noise causes. People need to call 911, call for help. This causes extreme stress. People cope by isolating inside their house, and now I'm hearing actually leaving their homes. Anonymity is a huge issue. We do not know who is living in these short-term rentals. In Arizona, it is against the law for property managers to book agents who are book residents that are registered sex offenders. We don't have any rules about that. Lastly, I just want to say that stronger community equals stronger mental health. As a psychologist, I care deeply about this, and our communities should feel strong and safe, and residents should not feel helpless. Sorry. Thank you.
I thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. My name is Roger Cressy. I live in Claremont Court in Palm Coast. And I want to ask you to look at the new laws that you're talking about putting in place on the basis of doing ethical business. 4 decades ago, I started as a young man on the retail floor, and through the years built up an international business. At every step of the way, we chose to operate our business ethically, whether the law required it or not. And tonight I want to draw attention to the unethical behavior of some of the owners of these STRs. In our particular case, we tried to deal with the STR owner first, as any sensible person would, and we were met with a comment that actually we needed to take measures in our home to deaden his noise coming across the river, across the canal. So he also said that he had spoken to all the neighbors bordering of his STR, and that they'd all said that we were being ridiculous. And so which I doubted at the time, but now have proof. This 2 days ago, we had occasion to go across the canal to a neighbor to him, and I spoke to the folk. Their father passed away a few weeks back, and I just want you to know that he was a United States Marine. He served honorably, two tours of duty in Vietnam, and a tour during Desert Storm. He eventually retired as a lieutenant colonel. His last battle was the one against cancer, which he lost, and he lay in his own bedroom a few feet away from this STR being terrorized by the noise, which I've only discovered now after the fact. So it's too late to help him, but there are other people who are voiceless in our community and need us to speak up and need us to take account of them. I became an American first in my heart before. You can hear my accent. I wasn't from here originally, but I became an American in my heart because I saw how America treated their war veterans. And I think that it's a tragedy that we let a person like him suffer in his own home. Anyway, I think in terms of these measures, I do think we need to categorize short-term rentals differently to normal rentals. I want to pause further licensing, as other people have said, and focus on noise ordinances, party lighting, lack of windows coverings, number of guests, all need to be considered. Thank you.
I thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
I'm Mayor Elfin, and Council. I am Quinn Cressy. I am a United States history high school teacher by profession and live in C-section, and specifically asking you, as you come up with these measures, to consider the financial investments in our homes that we as hardworking residents of all the sections have invested. So we chose to make our home on a canal because of the natural beauty, and that in itself is a subject that we should discuss, a treasure to be preserved not only for the current time, but for the generations to come. We also chose Palm Coast, trusting that the famously strict ordinances would protect our home's value. However, we have since discovered that, as we've all talked about, there's an elite group who are not subject to the same laws that we agree to, and they have a directly negative impact on our investments in our homes. So the elite groups are the streams of usually uninformed short-term renters who don't stay long enough to experience the consequence of their actions, and the many unethical owners who cite the magic property rights phrase as if it is a magic spell. Well, we are tired of our property rights playing second fiddle to business interests in our single-family zoned community. That is why we are asking you to immediately institute significant economic sanctions on both the owners and also the managing companies who ignore current law and the future regulations we expect to be put in place. A portion of these funds should be returned directly to the communities who host these businesses. A recent Realtor mailing reads, "The number of canal homes for sale is on the rise. Prices are flat. Average days on the market is growing and buyer traffic has slowed. Many factors are in play, but I'll share one from my personal experience. Last month, our next-door neighbor held an open house on a Sunday afternoon. We met a lovely couple that were interested in buying the property, and we thought they would be great neighbors. However, while they were there, the house built across the canal, especially as a short-term rental, advertising a living room that seats 12 plus outdoor furniture that seats 16, we have counted 19 on a pretty small patio, jolted into full swing with young teens speeding back and forth on jet skis, music blaring, and the potential buyers were no longer interested. To protect our investments, we need a limit on short-term rental capacities, not based simply on how many bedrooms there are in the facility, so that, for example, 4 bedrooms have 10 adults, etc. Numbers should be based on the size of the grounds, the entertainment areas, the canal impact, and proximity to neighbors. Additionally, we're asking that there's a cap on the ratio of short-term rentals to homesteads in each section. Thank you.
For your comment. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Marty Siegel. My wife and I bought a house here in 2006. We moved here permanently 14 years ago. We live in the C-section as well. We're lucky enough to have a short-term rental right next door to us. I guess they hit there about a year and a quarter at this point. For the most part, they've been okay, the renters they've had. Our neighbor across the canal just 2 weekends ago called 911. Police came. The next day, one of the young people that was next door actually came and knocked on my door to apologize because they were making so much noise. He not only knocked on my door, he went to every house on the block and across the canal who actually was the one that called. So they're not all bad. I was shocked, actually. But anyway, I read some things when our governor was vetoing this particular bill that, and you'll understand this, about 280,000 real estate agents in Florida are firmly against short-term rentals. Why? It's hurting your business. You can't sell a house if it's a party house. Now that the governor has, in fact, vetoed that, I wasn't happy about hearing that. We still are not going to be able to have the controls that we should have. And Mr. Kloufis, I like what you said about having an additional group of enforcement people. We've never had a problem. Anytime I ever called anybody, with a problem, I either went online and did it, or I called, and they're there right away. So if it is something we could do to have a separate group for just this problem, that would be great. From what I understand, there's like 350 short-term rentals in town. That's a lot, and some people here mentioned they have one on each side of them. I can't even imagine what that would be. Again, my wife and I have been pretty lucky. We just have kids staring at us when we're in the pool, little kids. I guess that's not that bad, but we've had some with noise. We've had cars all over the place, garbage all over the place for the animals to attack at night. And the biggest thing, and I did hear something today, my friend pointed out to me. The city of Barcelona, Spain, has just put in an ordinance to outlaw short-term rentals by the year 2029. They're going to ramp up to it, but by 2029, gone. They will not be able to have them. And that's Airbnb and Bookings.com. Those are the biggest ones they had. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. And the next speaker, please.
Hey, y'all. My name is Eddie Schilling. I live on Clarendon Court South. We've got 3 of them on our road, and it's pretty much a regular problem. I've called the police. I've gone over there myself. And the tough thing about it is that, like this week, I called on Sunday to report to the code enforcement. I left it on a tape recording. I called on Tuesday now, again, and they had no record of it. And when I called on This thing actually started on Saturday. So they had a boat trailer on the yard until they left on Thursday. When I called again on Thursday, they said by the time they get down there, there's only been a couple days, so it's really not in violation, according to what their rules are for 3 days. And, you know, the greatest idea that I've heard actually tonight even is about, you know, code enforcement that's strictly for that, for the short-term rental, and allow all these people to pay for that. It shouldn't come out of our pocket. It's not, you know, that's not what we moved here for. You know, I've been here 10 or 11 years, and I'm a native Floridian, and so is my wife. And it's really gotten out of control. It's a subject that you know, when the first one came, you didn't think much about it. But then as it keeps on going on, I mean, the guy in our neighborhood that's got the one on Clarendon, he's got one on Christopher, he's got a duplex over on Coral Reef, and the story was he told everybody, I'm going to be moving here. This is where we're going to live, at least 6 months out of the year. And I have no idea if it's this. I heard there was a $50 fee when they read. That's ridiculous. I mean, just think of a restaurant owner goes in, what do they pay? I mean, it used to be $100,000 for a liquor license here. But it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense of the fees that aren't collected and the money these people make off of this stuff. But anyway, I appreciate it a lot that y'all listen to us and can help us with this problem.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Peter Johnson, Palm Coast C-Section. Mayor, Council, I'm glad that everyone has get to hear some of the concerns from some of my fellow residents tonight. I think we need to be pretty clear about this. We dodged a bullet, and this is typical Palm Coast fashion. We have an issue, we ignore it, and then something happens, and in this case, we banked on the fact that Mr. DeSantis vetoed the bill, which was awesome that he did and used some common sense. But we need to take action and address this. Furthermore, I just want to give a personal example of a little bit of the frustration that some of the members of the community face in regards with code enforcement. This was 6/27/2024. I personally received a notice of violation for parking in the swale at 4:22 a.m., which proves that there are code enforcement that are going around. If you look on the thing, it says that they did not post it on the door. And that's interesting because if they did, they would have had to have seen the permit for the work for the same day of the $18,000 roof that we're putting on the house. We have members of the community that are trying to make their houses beautiful and investing money, and yet code enforcement is attacking us, not preventing the Airbnbs and all the issues that we incur. Code enforcement is not doing a good job in this matter. I'm sorry. And Mr. Kloufis, quite frankly, you have one of the more reasonable solutions, which I have been brought in front of this council numerous times. We need to implement a fee structure where these Airbnbs buy into the system, and the residents who are disproportionately affected by them are not the ones fronting the cost. It is unacceptable that we went through the system, pulled the proper permits, spent almost $20,000 on a roof, and yet you're threatening us with $5,000 fines because I parked there and we had 2 trailers for the gentlemen who were willing to start work the next day. Just thoughts to be considered. Do a better job because you are not representing the people of Palm Coast.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other speakers? Yes, ma'am. Either one.
My name is Marion. I've been a neighborhood watch leader in the R section and spokesperson for residents for 13 years. At the June 4th presentation on Ralph Carter Park, Mr. Hurst stated modifications to all field lights are completed except for one pole, and now all field lights no longer shine onto the R section neighborhood. That's an absurd fabrication. Residents repeatedly notified Mr. Hurst and city leaders there has been no change. Also, every evening and Saturday, as I received complaints, I called the sheriff's office and also text Mayor Alford. Mr. Hurst stated in the future, field lights will be turned off at 9 p.m. instead of 10. In the fall, the lights are on by 5 p.m., just when residents expect and deserve to enjoy peace and quiet in their own home. It sounds like Mr. Hurst has decided residents should be happy to be tortured 4 hours every evening instead of 5. Mr. Hurst does not live adjacent to Ralph Carter Park. His home is secluded and off a main road. He enjoys peace and quiet. At 8:30 p.m. April 17th, residents met with Mayor Alford, Mr. Hurst, and Mr. DiLorenzo at Ralph Carter Park. The meeting's purpose was to view the distance and severity of field lights into residents' homes. However, when we arrived, all field lights were conveniently off. Mr. Mr. Hurst has the ability to turn the field lights on from an app on his phone and would not do so. We stood in the dark discussing we've completed a thorough investigation of lighted school and county fields at the same time events took place in Ralph Carter Park. Residents witnessed many fields unoccupied and available. Residents also witnessed unoccupied fields at Indian Trails. Mayor then asked Mr. DiLorenzo, why doesn't Mr. Maxwell want to move to those other fields? Mr. DiLorenzo replied, because he doesn't want to pay the extra fees. Also on June 4th, Mr. Maxwell, who makes a grand amount of money off participants, approached the podium, smirked, and confidently thanked mayor and council for not listening to residents. His display was very disconcerting. For the purpose of full transparency, residents would like to know what is really going on behind closed doors in the city. Mr. Maxwell and city leaders continue to voice their concern for children. However, at sporting events, there are several hundred and many times over 1,000 participants and families crammed inside Ralph Carter Park. There is consistent vehicle flow in and out and through the park with a high probability of vehicle-pedestrian incident. How is that caring about anyone? Ralph Carter Park is closed June to December for renovations. That gives the city more than enough time to install lights in another field or make ground improvements to current fields not adjacent to Ralph Carter Park. Not adjacent to a residential home, excuse me. The lights of Ralph Carter Park are visible a quarter mile behind the park. City leaders with no regard for surrounding residents have arbitrarily turned this neighborhood park into a sports complex. No city leader lives adjacent to Ralph Carter Park. Their families enjoy peace and quiet. What gives anyone the right to inflict high-powered stadium lighting and horrific noise onto the R-section neighborhood? It's inhumane, and we do not want those lights shining into our homes again.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any? Yes, ma'am.
I think that the one thing that I'm noticing, I'm Hannah Vargo from C-Section, and I've been coming to a lot of the community meetings so far, and I really enjoy everything that everybody has to say, so thank you for taking your time. And what I see happening, I wasn't really planning to speak, it's a lot of negativity, and I think that these, as a community, maybe we start to shape our suggestions in a way to bring us back to what Palm Coast holds as a core value and how we can work on getting there. Because what I see over in my chair, and I'm even like that too, it's a lot of like shaky anger, like people are very upset, and this is a beautiful city. I know that you had said that you maybe wanted to structure some of these values off of the foundation of maybe a St. John's or a Putnam County. However, they speak incredibly highly of Palm Coast. And I just think we have a great community that maybe we can bring back together with some of those foundations. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other members of the public that would like to address me at this time on any item that's not on the agenda? Seeing no one come forward, I'm going to close public comment. Now, it would be appropriate now to direct staff with consensus to formulate a suggested upgrade to our rules and regulations legally for all short-term rentals based on bringing together all the comments that we heard tonight. I think it was a fairly robust conversation. If we've missed any, we can always include them, but I heard some really very good comments, and the experience, of course, we understand, which I think is the incentive to move forward. Does anyone want to make a comment on the direction to staff? Staff needs to be very clearly directed, and also I'd like to put a timeline to it as well.
I think we already gave some direction to both our attorney and our city manager. And a timeline, yes, absolutely. And I want folks to know, this has been a problem. We've been aware of it. Now our hands are a little untied, so we have some leverage here. Personally, I understand exactly what you're going through. In 2016, I built a beach house on Hatteras Island, North Carolina, in the Outer Banks, and moved to it and discovered 90% of the properties around me were rentals, short-term rentals. And every week, I met all my new best friends. And they were all drunk, and they were all loud, and maybe the first few weeks, they were a lot of fun. 2 years later, they were not fun, and I sold that house and moved to Palm Coast. So I fully understand what you're going through, and we really need to get this right and do as much as we can to ensure that you know, these rentals are following the rules. And I know our sheriff department gets called out a lot. I want to make sure that part of what we're going to do is coordinate with them, and when they go out at 2 o'clock in the morning, we need to know about it so we can keep a record, and then we can finally, you know, have a procedure for going after these folks that are abusing this. And as that one gentleman said, he's had some good experiences, and I have one down the street from me, and I've never had a problem, but there's a lot of folks having problems. So yes, you have my consensus, and let's put a quick timeline on it to get this done.
Councilwoman, can you help frame the direction for staff so that they're very clear, so that we can move more quickly if staff comes back to us with the product that we're looking for?
Yeah, I agree with Vice Mayor. I do think that we have given some pretty good direction. I guess to be more specific, I would like to see a proposed ordinance added to our code of ordinances that regulates the STRs. In addition, though, as a part of that workshop, I would like to know a couple things, and I would ask, obviously, for consensus. This is just, you know, the Teresa show. So if we could get consensus on an inquiry into the following, what a couple code enforcement officers dedicated to STRs would be cost-wise, and whether we could offset that cost with fees to the owners. So I'd like that to be a part of the workshop. Also, I heard some really good ideas from the public comment. I tried to write everything down, but I'm a little unsure of what we can do legally. So when these folks register their STRs, can we legally force them to give us the website that they're advertising their STR on? Whether or not that's through Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, whatever it may be, can we force them to give us that information? Can we limit the amount of STRs in a certain ratio? I want to say we probably can't, but I don't know that for sure, so I'd like to know that as well. Oh, and I also liked the preventing registered sex offenders from renting these as well. So I don't know if that's legally permitted, but those are some of the ideas that I heard, and I'm sure there's more. I can bring back more as I look at my notes again to council for consensus, but I would ask for consensus to make that a part of the workshop as well.
Absolutely.
You have it.
Perfect.
Councilman?
Yep, absolutely. The dedicated funding mechanism for, to be able to have a code enforcement officer out there, out and about. Just to respond to a couple of other things. I think that we should work with the tax collector. So the tax collector uses software called AirDNA. I serve on the Tourism Development Council, and our next meeting is actually on the 11th. The Tourism Development Council gets that $50 per year registration cost that I think was mentioned. Yes. Or it's $5. It's a minute amount. Yep. And it's levied at the county level. It's a very minute amount, but they're responsible for collecting that tax. And what they do is they use this data service called AirDNA, which scrapes the aggregate of all of the VRBOs, Airbnbs. I think we should reach out to them and try to use similar software if we can have some type of working in conjunction so that we can actually see where the Airbnbs are in our local community. And my one other thing that I would like to emphasize, if you believe that someone is having a short-term rental on their house and they're not, they're grandfathered, or I'm sorry, homesteaded in, you can go to the tax collector's website /anonymous. So it would be flaglertax.com/anonymous, and you can report them for having, using their house as a short-term rental, and they will follow through with whether that house is homesteaded and whether or not they are registered to be a short-term rental at the county level. So if you do have intrigue, feel free to reach out through currently Suzanne Johnson for a short while, to file an anonymous report. Again, that's flaglertax.com/anonymous. So even if you're unsure, it's a great way to have them go ahead and double check to make sure that they are playing by the fair rules that we have in place now. But I'm looking forward to a robust set of services that we can levy to try to make this a better place for everybody. And thank you guys for coming out tonight.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yes, thank you guys for all the ideas. It's helpful.
Wait. I get my turn last too. I agree, and we have consensus on basically everything that was shared this evening and amongst City Council. I would like to frame this, and I'll ask for your consensus again. There are two basic components to the problem. You have those that are renting and causing the disarray or the problem and the issues on a daily, weekly, whatever basis, okay? Those are your renters. That requires a certain set of rules and regulations to correct that. Just as important, and perhaps even more importantly, you have the owners and/or the management companies. I would very much like to have council separate those two entities, because I don't believe the fix for one is the same as the fix for the other. Those that are here for a fleeting moment are gone, and that's it. Maybe they come back, maybe they never do. It's the ownership of the property. Now we have to understand the legalities involved, but it seems to me that that might be the core, because if the penalties and/or what other rules and regulations mount up against the ownership, I think we begin to cure the disease or the cancer for the longer term. So that's the only other thing I would ask. I'm just suggesting a framework from which staff will come back to us to show us. Now, there may be same things on both lists, but if we could think about it that way, I think we are really attacking the heart of the problem.
Well, that's the enforcement side of it, and that's to the property owners.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
City manager, do you have any questions about the direction? I would ask, timeline-wise, I can't pin you to a date, but give me an idea of when you think staff could come back to us so that we can have this discussion and begin to formulate that ordinance.
We understand the importance of this priority, Mayor. We can tentatively schedule it for your August 13th workshop. It is going to be I just want to preference it is going to be a lengthy meeting because we are in the middle of the budget as well. So just wanted to preference that and that we could schedule it for that.
And the only thing I would ask you is, so we have meetings before that. So all I'm suggesting to city council members, if we have city council comments, we could use that time to discuss this a little bit further, should we need to, in advance of staff coming back, if that works. I don't want the conversation to lapse that long. And I understand you need the time to get there, but we can continue this conversation during each meeting up until that point in time, if that works for you.
Sure.
Okay. Counselor?
Yeah, just to tack on one thing, the other thing I would want to say to the public and to the council is, like, we want to make sure we do this right. And so in doing this, it does take time. So in passing certain ordinances, when you would pass something, it wouldn't just be passed the next day. We have to think about how long we're going to grandfather everyone in and let this take effect. So just keep in mind while we draft this ordinance, give me some time. We'll work with staff.
All right, is that a discussion of time is of the essence?
Time is of the essence.
Very
I would
good.
agree.
All right,
but
then we agree. Thank you. And I want to thank the members that bravely and boldly stood up today. This is, I can't think of a better way how government can work for all of us. So thank you for that. With that,
Mayor, may I just ask
Please.
one more thing of code enforcement? I know for our homesteaded homeowners, code enforcement has repeatedly said that the goal is getting homeowners in compliance. So we've been adverse to instituting fines against homeowners, and we've been more kind of geared toward, hey, we want to get you in compliance. We're not really in the business of taking money from you. Is it possible to maybe speak with code enforcement about a different approach regarding the STRs? So if you get called out, if code enforcement is receiving a complaint on an STR versus a homesteaded property, instituting the fines and being a little more aggressive, because that's already worked into our code. We've just decided to take a different approach to homeowners versus STRs, and I just don't think that they should be treated one and the same, but I don't know from a legal perspective whether or not that's appropriate. So maybe that's something to add to the workshop, but I do think that that's an important distinction in how we enforce.
and your point is well taken, because I think it was said by all of you that the solution has to be long-lasting. What we don't want to do is get halfway down the road and find out we've made a mistake and make sure that this,
Right
quite
to jail.
frankly, my desire is that what we end up with becomes a model for the region, for the state. Others will look to us, as we have looked to Flagler County in the past for 10 years' worth of work on this, that we can raise the bar and become a model for everyone to look at Palm Coast, which would be a wonderful marketing tool for Palm Coast. Look at them. They took care of it, and this is what it is. So I think that'd be great. And thank you all for each of your, your contributions to this. Okay, with that, I will move to the next agenda item, which is F for the minutes. We have minutes from the meeting on June the 18th, 2024, which was a business meeting. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from the Vice Mayor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Councilman Clufus. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Thank you. And similarly, on the special workshop meeting held on June the 25th, 2024, a special workshop, may I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that
I have a motion from the Vice Mayor. May I have a second?
So moved.
Second from Councilman Clufus. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Does clerk have the counts?
The motion passes unanimously.
Why, thank you. Let the room clear for a moment, and then we'll move on to agenda letter G. I'll let council read that in, hold on, what's a second? Okay, if you would read that into the record for us, please.
Ordinance 2024-XX, a proposed amendment to the Charter of City of Palm Coast, amending Article 6, Budget and Appropriations to delete from outdated provisions related to limitations to council's contracting authority, which shall be considered by ballot.
Mr. De Lorenzo, the floor is yours.
I think that's me first, Mayor. I
Okay,
just have a quick.
if you could do the intro, City Manager.
Sure. City Council, as per your direction, this ordinance is for your consideration. The proposed amendment seeks to update the charter of the City of Palm Coast. This amendment aligns with City Council's strategic action plan, specifically in your strong, resilient economy pillar. It enhances our fiscal management capabilities. It supports our goals of operational excellence, as well as responsible stewardship of public funds by eliminating constraints that hinder our ability to effectively manage contracts and budgetary appropriations. This specific change involves a deletion of an outdated provision that currently imposes limitation to the council's contracting authority. This is something that hasn't been reviewed in probably about a decade. By removing this provision, it would streamline and modernize our charter to better reflect the current needs and operational practices of our city as we grow into the future. And then furthermore, this amendment will be presented to the citizens of Palm Coast for approval on the ballot, ensuring our community has a direct voice in this significant update for our future. And Jason has a presentation prepared to help walk you through the process. It wasn't a part of your packet just because of the timeline on this item, but Jason's going to walk you through it.
Thank you, Lauren. Mr. De Lorenzo, the floor is now yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. That was a very strong introduction, so I'm just going to get started. The ability for you and the electorate to amend the charter is based in Florida Statute, Chapter 166. And I'm just going to read this section for you because it really lays out exactly what the process is. So the governing body of a municipality may by ordinance, and that's what you're considering today, by ordinance, or the electors of a municipality may by petition signed by 10% of the registered electors as of the last pending municipal general election, submit to the electors. If you pass the ordinance, we will then submit it to the electors at the general election. Of said municipality, a proposed amendments to its charter, which amendment may be to any part or to all of said charter, except the part describing the boundaries of such municipality. The governing body of the municipality shall place the proposed amendment contained in the ordinance or petition to a vote of the electors at the next general election held within the municipality or at a special election called for such purpose. So the general election is November 5, I believe. And so these are the steps to achieve the charter amendment. This is the current language located in Article 6, 3E, which limits the council's contracting authority. Again, I'll read it. Unless authorized by the electors of the city at a duly held referendum election, the city council shall not enter into lease purchase contracts or any other unfunded multi-year contracts, the repayment of which extends in excess of 36 months or exceeds $15 million. Now, this is language from the original charter from 1999. I believe $1999 to today's dollars are significantly different.
Same.
Yeah, I think it might be around $27 million, is something like that. But really, as you've seen recently, capital projects are more and more expensive, and so this really has a significant limitation on your ability to pay for capital projects. I put this slide in here just so you kind of understand the timeline that we're working in. The city manager mentioned that, we are on an accelerated timeline here. So by our interlocal agreement that we have with the supervisor of elections, it lays out the timeline for a referendum. In there, it says that there's a 60-day timeline, which puts us to August the 5th for final ballot language to be to Ms. Lenhart. That is because it has to be translated, I believe, and there's some other reasons why they need it in that timeline. But I highlighted the 16th because that is the last business meeting we have scheduled where you could have the second reading of this ordinance to make the timeline work and to transmit it to the supervisor by August the 5th. As you saw in the ordinance that's included in your packet, this is the proposed ballot language. So this would be what the citizens of Palm Coast, and even though this would be on the ballot, only citizens of Palm Coast would receive this portion to vote on. And of course, you've seen these before. There's always a title and a summary, right? The title is kind of tells you what you're doing. The summary kind of explains the what and the why you're doing it. So this charter amendment is to update provisions related to the City Council's contracting authority. And the question for the electorate is, shall Article 6 of the charter be amended by removing provisions related to contracting authority that limit the city's ability to enter into public-private partnerships, respond to emergencies, and have the ability to address growth by having future residents contribute to infrastructure costs. So as you can see, it's related to contracting authority. There's only one part of Article 6 related to contracting authority, and that is 3E. So it doesn't go into specific detail here about removing that language, but it relates to it in a legal manner because there's no other part of Article 6 that relates to that. Now, in the ordinance, you have a little bit more information about that, but so this is the ballot language to be considered. This is the draft language. If you want to discuss changes with council, today in preparation of the vote coming up on the 16th for the second reading, we have the ability to do that. So if you'd like to have a discussion around that, we can. I have a couple more slides, Vice Mayor, or I can answer a question. It looked like you had a question.
Well, I'm just curious what emergencies.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. So we had our bond council review our charter language to see if we had to make an emergency purchase that would require borrowing of over 15 million or longer than 36 months, is that exception allowed under the charter? And Mr. Rowe, which you've met before, determined that no, you cannot make that under. So let's say with Beryl out there, I don't want to say too much, but let's say we had a catastrophe that required the city to reinvest in a facility. That is the being able to respond to emergencies. So let's say City Hall, was destroyed by a storm or some other act of God. That is the kind of borrowing you might need, right? You can only imagine how the city would try to operate without having a place for all the people in this building to work.
We meet at your house,
That's
Jason.
what I was going to say.
I guess, that's fine, that's fine. I'm happy to have everybody. I'm going to need a better broadband, but Metronet hasn't made it to my house yet, so. but we'll make it work.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, that's the type of an emergency that we would, you'd be able to respond to. Right now, we have limited abilities to do that, not no ability, but limited ability. And so this gives you a little bit of flexibility, a little bit more time to adjust to market conditions, and then also an opportunity to respond to emergencies in a very timely manner, unlike the language that says now, that's in the charter now. If you need to respond to an emergency and you had to wait for the next general election to put it on a referendum, I mean, who know, that could be as much as 2 years away, right, to prepare for that.
We really have to time our emergencies well.
Yeah, you'd have to be really smart about when you
Really smart about the
had
emergencies,
emergencies, right? So I did apologize for my lateness of return from vacation, but I did hear your conversation last week, and I know there was some conversations about, guardrails or safeguards. So I wanted to point out a couple of things for you. There is a constitutional limitation to borrowing for local governments. You cannot borrow against ad valorem taxes, so property tax collections, without having a referendum. So this is not what this is. This is revenues that are not ad valorem. So you're aware that revenues, we have several different buckets of revenues that come in, right? And so this would be only for you could only pledge those types of revenues. If you wanted to pledge ad valorem taxes, you'd still have to go out to a referendum. So that doesn't change that limitation that's in in the state's constitution. Another financial protection is our debt management policy, which is Ordinance 2013-111. In this ordinance, we reference that we will maintain this fiscal policy. And this is language directly from the ordinance and from the policy. I think the first part is really strong. The purpose of the debt management policy is to establish parameters and provide guidance governing the issuance, managing, and continuing evaluation of and reporting on all debt obligations to the city. So there's we can certainly send this out to you this week, tomorrow if you'd like. We can send you the policy, you can see it. It's been reviewed, it's a good strong policy from 2013 that lays out, and has a good strong set of definitions in it about what each type of mechanism is for financial planning. And we can send that out to you if you'd like to review the full policy before the next vote. So at this point, I'm just going to return to the ballot language, and I'll take questions, or we're looking for discussion.
So if I could start, and then everybody obviously. So language in these type of ordinances, initiatives are somewhat foreign to the general public. They don't read these kind of things frequently, and there's some legal support underneath them. So my question is, the one thing I didn't hear was scheduling a robust, informative education communication from now to the time that this would be voted on by the public. In other words, I think it's incredibly important that we use every resource we have to make sure that the public that will be voting understands in their own way what this legal language means and represents presently and for the future. So is there a plan, or will you present us a plan for how that communication, that education process will take place?
We can, once the adoption of the ordinance passes, we can put that together, yes.
Okay, and I wouldn't wait, because regardless of what the language or fine tuning, the process of education and communication will be the same. The words may change, but not the process. So I would look forward to that. And with that, I would ask, comment.
Yep, I harped on it. More of a comment. I harped on it last week. This is a tremendous educational opportunity for the city to be able to try to get the word out on why this should be put into place, and the opportunities that it'll unlock specifically for westward expansion, and the macroeconomic opportunities that could generate through tax dollars and all sorts of other, good things that come along with having, transient traffic come through for some of the business opportunities out there. But again, this is going to be difficult to ask the elected body to be out there championing this effort. So it's really coming down to you guys being able to get the word out, do the best that you can to try to make the public understand, because at the end of the day, it's a very short time frame. I'm sure we won't have the opportunity to try to refine messages and do polling and try to see what language would work best for us to convey that. But yes, again, I would absolutely concur with the mayor that this is an educational opportunity, and the success of this measure will be a function of how effective that communication was.
Councilwoman, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you for the presentation and the information. I'm definitely in favor of this. My one reservation with regards to the language is it's not clear that this is regarding financial contracting. So when I look at this provision, I wonder, as a resident stepping outside of my position as a city councilwoman, it says related to contracting authority that limit the city's ability to enter into public-private partnerships, respond to emergencies, and have the ability to address growth by having future residents contribute to the costs. To Vice Mayor's question, as a resident, they may ask the same thing. Well, what do you mean respond to emergencies? So I would just suggest, in order to be more transparent about what we're doing and to try to provide more information to the residents, that we add the word fiscal before contracting. So we're making it very clear to the residents that we are specifically amending the charter to remove provisions related to our fiscal ability to contract for these reasons. Because I don't feel that right now this is speaking to them in that way.
Just a question, I'm not disagreeing, but is it redundant? Is there any other kind of contracting other than financial or fiscal?
Well, yes, there is, but you have to keep in mind that the normal resident that goes to the ballot box isn't thinking in their head, is there another type of contracting? If someone doesn't understand it, they're going to say no. At least I would.
Hence the education process. But
I get it.
I don't have a problem with the word, of course not.
I just think that, we're asking the residents to do a pretty big thing, and I think it's a great thing, but in an effort to be transparent and to give them as much information as possible, I think that it's incumbent upon us to be clear. And to me, adding just that one word makes this that much more clear. Now, what I also would just like to point out, and for our friends in the media that will certainly report on this, I think one of the reasons we've been handcuffed in the city so far as infrastructure goes is because we have been retroactive by virtue of the fact that our charter has handcuffed us. We've been in a save and spend mode because we've had to be. This certainly gives us the ability to bond out and borrow against what future revenues will be from future residents. So all of the residents now who are justifiably upset that their fees and their taxes are going up because of growth, this allows us to borrow against future impact fees. It allows us to enter into these public-private partnerships that allow us to kind of look to the future revenues that are going to be coming in from future residents. So I think this is a great thing. It's my opinion that before we pass this, we just add that one word, fiscal.
You raised a good question. Does this allow us to borrow against future impact fees?
Against future impact fees, I think I'm going to need Helena to help me with that one.
Phone a friend.
You just mentioned that, and I want to clarify that. Because sooner or later, somebody's going to pay for this.
I think, I'll let
My money's on yes.
I'll
but
let
let's see.
Helena answer.
If I was a
'cause I don't
gambling
wanna-
man, I'd say yes, because it's non-ad valorem tax, but we're going to hear right here. Big money, big money, big money.
So this will allow you to go out and borrow with a covenant to budget and appropriate, right? Meaning that you can use cities' non-ad valorem revenues as pledged revenues. So you would borrow and then use your impact fees as payment for the debt service. So for, the example of the fire stations that Carl Cody reviewed, you could go out 10 years. If you're not going to build a fire station for another 10 years, you could borrow for 10 years and then use those impact fees as payment, but you're pledging, available non-ad valorem, so that, because impact fees depend on the economy, it wouldn't be a very attractive loan for investors. So by pledging, by using the covenant to budget and appropriate, you would supplement that coverage.
So just to give you some arithmetic, just to help you with that, so as Elena said, if you do the arithmetic on the number of just the ITT lots that are platted and not built, the impact fees associated with those approach, if not exceed, $90 million, which would be revenue that could be used against some, project that is better defined in the language here.
I think it's
as one
important-
single source
Yep,
of
just
borrowing,
one, right,
correct.
I get it. I think it's important, not just in the educational aspect, but in the way we write this, that people know exactly what we're asking and how we're going to deal with it. Because right now, the way you have, and I know it's your first draft, but it's like, what did he just say? It's kind of like, I'm not going to vote for this because I don't even understand it, I would think. And you had raised that too. So I think it's important that we get that language down a little more precise. I am fully in favor, by the way, of putting this on a ballot and letting voters decide this, which I think is excellent.
Well, it's the law.
Huh?
It's the law.
Yeah, well, it's the law too, but it's still excellent that that's the way to approach it. I understand the deadline for getting this on a ballot. One thing you left out in August was the absentee ballots, which even makes them have to get their ballots, printed up and everything, even sooner. Do we know how much it's going to cost us to put this on the
But
ballot?
asked the question at the last meeting, you would suggest $16,000 was the number, I think I remember?
No.
No.
Unless there's been an update to what my conversation with the supervisor, she did not expect it to cost any.
It's not going to
additional-
cross,
There's
it's
room
not
on
going to
the
cross
ballots.
over to another page.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Good.
So even better. So Vice Mayor, the pedal's to the metal right now. So I'm going to ask, and if Councilwoman Pontieri wants to make a motion with the language change, we need to kind of get to that tonight in order to make both readings and be able to move forward according to a timeline.
Yeah, and Mayor, well, I'm not making a motion
We haven't gotten to
yet.
public participation yet, but we will.
I'm not making a motion yet. So I want to be very clear. I understand that the pedal is to the metal, but I also don't want to rush this haphazardly. I do think it needs to move forward, but I'd ask legal counsel to explain why it is you drafted it this way, because being that this is a legal matter, I feel like there's a reason why it was probably drafted this way, and that might guide the discussion so we get there tonight.
No, absolutely, through the mayor. So I appreciate you pointing that out. So the law outlines this has to be clear and precise so the voters have an opportunity to understand what exactly they're voting on. The adding fiscal to contracting is important. We can certainly do that. I think it adds some clarification. That way, as a voter looks at this, will understand what specifically, as was noted, even though contracting generally involves fiscal rules and responsibilities, the average voter maybe is not up to speed on that. So that would help outline that as well. But as drafted, again, it outlines by reference what specifically is being changed. That specific provision, the charter, is what relates to this type of contracting authority. So the language in the preamble, we could modify it to add fiscal contracting authority. Then we could do that further in the body of the ordinance and then down at the actual language that we would add where it says provisions related to right before contract, we would put fiscal.
So my other question, is there a reason why we did not say, shall Article 6 of the Charter be amended by removing Provision 3E?
We can certainly add that in there. It's referenced by
Would that allay one of your concerns, Vice Mayor, if we were to actually put the provision specifically that's being removed?
That is fine. I just want to make sure.
Who would know Provision 3E, though?
No, but if we do the educational thing right, they will.
Oh, I know, but
and I think that's
But-
important.
It's a
and
point of
you're right.
reference. It
You're-
probably is not confusing, but agreed, but
You're right, Councilman Clufus, but at least in the meantime, people would understand. I mean, there are people that read the packets, these are public meetings, so at least in the meantime, they're not guessing, because Article 6 is not a small article, there's several provisions in it. So at the very least, we are letting them know this is a specific provision that we are going to be asking our residents to vote on.
Sure. I would just assume they would still go to the full text and be able to digest it, but that's fine.
Okay, are we there with comments now?
Yeah,
I would comment
Jason,
more
you
than-
had mentioned, and I know this was brought up last time we talked about this, you had mentioned guardrails. And I know Ms. Pontieri had mentioned guardrails. So what kind of guardrails are we looking at?
Yeah, so in those previous slides, it included some of the fiscal limitations that are included in the Constitution, the state constitution, and then our fiscal policy that's specifically referenced in the ordinance that we will abide by those. I don't think that's the exact language we have in there, but we will uphold.
The exact language is the city council continues to remain committed to following the principles of financial accountability and transparency as outlined in Resolution 2013-11. So that's, again, that's the body of, sorry, the body of that resolution outlines y'all's financial transparency and accountability provisions. Obviously, it would be too much to put in here, so referencing that y'all are committed to the principles of that, we felt would help to emphasize, and obviously that document has more details as that Mr. Lorenzo read to y'all as far as, the reasons why you would seek to borrow funding and what kind of funding sources would go into that. And I think just to wrap it from the legal perspective, again, this is ultimately y'all's ballot provision will come forward, so we want to make sure that y'all are comfortable with the language, and that there's some basics that have to be in there so it's legally operable and effective, sufficient, but I think some of these recommended changes have been brought up here. We can easily, if there's a motion to amend as written with these changes, we can, add that in and make sure that y'all are comfortable.
Okay, you're going to get a chance for additional discussion. I would like to hear from the public.
Sure. I would, but real
Unless
quick.
somebody has a comment for
My
in
one
advance.
comment would
Yes, sir.
be for the public out there and also for our council that'll remain on city council. I know Kathy's not here right now, but if we borrow against impact fees or something like that source, we're basically committing to that development. And I just want to make sure that everyone's aware out in the public as well that it's critical that in the future, if these type of mechanisms are ever used to fund things, there's a reason that we as a city have been pay as we go for this entire time. Just be careful in the future trying to use non-ad valorem tax revenue as a dedicated source for these things. We can't wrap them in synthetic CDOs or whatever, Helena, to get them AAA rated, but those type of unsure revenue sources, it's I don't want to call it a slippery slope, but it does present an issue because we're committing to that development. That if we were to, the $90 million of infill lots, that's committed to, and that'll never be able to be changed. So food for thought.
And just one other point of inclusion in the program of communication and education is I'm not sure that the public at large, our residents might understand P3, public-private partnerships. So I'd like that to be, well explained and probably, some relevant example so that people can kind of understand what those opportunities could potentially represent, if that could be included as well.
Mayor, if I will. I thank you for bringing that up because, this presentation was really about the mechanics of how to do this and not really about, the why as much, because you already started discussing that in previous meetings. But the P3, and we call that out as the P3 here, right, the public-private partnership, the current limitation is on the lease purchase, and most P3s, many P3s, really successful ones, include a lease purchase. And, we started doing a little research from P3s around the state, and there are some communities that are really benefiting from that financial model, and we do not have the ability to enter into that. Particularly the city of Hollywood has done several really great projects. The city of Orlando, like the Dr. Phillips Center, was a P3 project. And even the DOT, the I-4 Ultimate project was a P3 project, where that was financed through private dollars. So there's a lot of movement in here. Florida is one of the leaders. We have public-private partnerships in state statute, the ability to do them. And this portion of the charter significantly reduces our opportunities there and to take advantage of some of the things that other communities have been doing really, really well. Vice Mayor, you asked about the, Helena gave you an answer there on the impact fees. It reminded me that I know for sure that Flagler County Schools, one of the revenue sources they use to pay for the construction of the Rimfire School is impact fees. So they dedicated, when they borrowed those dollars, they dedicated impact fees to that. So they're still paying for that, even though that school's been open for 10 or 12 years or so. And they still are using those dedicated funds that they're collecting from those impact fee revenues today to pay for that school. So, and that goes to your earlier discussion about having the current residents, the future residents participate, right? Because that school was built years ago. New students have come into that school over the years, and everyone is contributing towards that now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, gentlemen, public comment?
Mike Norris, 2 Lima Place. Do you guys understand the concept of negative liberties? I know you do, Ms. Pontieri. The 10 amendments to the Constitution shall not. They put these safeguards in place. And what you're attempting to do is you're going to put the city in debt. I just want the public to know that. And if the city's funds are going to go to fund this, advertising it up to the election, I'm going to put as much money for my campaign as I possibly can to campaign against it. Because what's the limit? What's the borrowing limit you're going to put on it? Not $15 million, so what's the limit? There's no limit on it. Future revenue impact fees, as far as what I've been reading is, impact fees can't be used to service the debt. So I'd like to have that explained. Public-private partnership. We know what you want the money for. You wanted to build that $90 million sports facility. They're going to build it, then they're going to lease it back to us, and we're going to be stuck with it. So I'm going to campaign against this because it's negative liberties. Those guys that wrote that charter did it for a reason. It's to keep politicians from running us in the ground and making us broke. And that's what you're going to do because you didn't get the money through the legislature to pay for all these infrastructure projects. Mr. Coates was just talking last week at the meeting about how the impact fees didn't keep up with the pay for the fire stations. So we are behind on all those funds is funding those projects. And it's because you guys didn't do your job and get the money through the legislature. You left a once-in-a-generation opportunity when you had Speaker Renner as the Speaker of the House. So you're not going to put this city in debt. I'm going to guarantee it.
Is there any other member of the public that would like to address me at this time? Seeing no one come forward, I'll come back to the dais for discussion.
Again, I'm all willing to put anything in front of the voters, let the voters decide. I'm sure there'll be, both sides of this issue will be presented to the voters over this course of time, and I have faith that the voters will make the right decision. So I'm willing to put this on a ballot. I don't think it's something we should just decide not to do. I think voters need to make that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I think voters are capable of making that decision. I think, again, like I said, the viability of this is a function of the communication to the electorate. So, yeah.
Councilwoman.
I'll piggyback on to what my fellow colleagues said. I think that the voters are smart. They can figure this out. I just do want to point out 2 things. One, we've heard voters say that they're willing to pay higher taxes for certain things. One of them is public safety. And that they would vote in favor of that. And this came up when we were talking about the half-cent sales tax. There were residents who said, I would be fine with the half-cent sales tax to make sure my city is safe and that fire and police have what they need. Likewise, I do think that the voters, if given the opportunity, would rather their infrastructure be contributed towards by future residents. And so I understand the fear of putting us in debt. I don't want to put us in debt, but we're in debt now. and we're paying for our debt now with increased user fees from our current residents. That's why we had the utility rate study. Part of the reason we were looking at, the necessity to possibly raise utility rates is because we have debt service that comes out of our utilities. So, this is another tool in the toolbox. It doesn't mean that we are going to put the city in debt, but right now, unfortunately, we're in a position where we are asking our current residents to shoulder a lot of the infrastructure from growth, and that is just not fair. And I've been an advocate working against that since taking this seat, and I think that this is a way to kind of spread that cost. So I think that the residents absolutely should have the choice as to whether or not to do this, and I think given the opportunity, they'll make the right decision.
And my final comment is just education, education, education. So I think you got my message on giving every resident of the city of Palm Coast as much information, transparency, and understanding as possible before they go to the polls. So with that, I would ask if you want to do the honors based on a change in
Yes.
language, if you would?
Sure. So I would like to make a motion to approve the proposed ballot language that's in this proposed ordinance to read as follows. Shall Article 6 of the Charter be amended by removing Provision 3E related to fiscal contracting authority that limit the city's ability to enter into public-private partnerships, respond to emergencies, and have the ability to address growth by having future residents contribute to infrastructure costs?
So your motion is to amend the language that was presented today, and did you include the word financial?
I did.
Okay.
Fiscal.
And council, is that satisfactory?
Yes, Mayor.
Very good. Then with that, I would ask if there's a second.
I'll go ahead and second it. I do have one question.
Well, one thing at a time.
Well,
So
I'm seconding it, opening up for discussion now.
Yeah, so,
I do
okay,
have a
all right, so
question.
I have a second from the vice mayor.
Right.
Discussion.
Yes, exactly. If we decide, this has to come back to us a second read, so if we decide, any of us, we want a little extra tweak here or there, we're certainly capable of doing.
I would just caution, please be respectful of the timeline.
I got it,
Otherwise,
I got it.
that's all.
But this would come back to us at the next business meeting, I assume? Yeah, so if we had a tweak, we could make a tweak. It's not that I'm saying that I have one, but, and either,
Understood.
any of us could say, oh gee, we forgot that. Okay, that's fine, that's all I wanted to know.
So we have a motion, a second. Any additional discussion?
Yep, just for clarification, though, I just wanted to make sure Councilwoman Pontieri's comments, we don't have any general fund debt obligations, right? So the utility is a good example of how we have been able to fund the current growth with commitments for the future growth that we're expected, but just so nobody jumps out of arms, we don't have any general fund debt servicing, right?
That's my understanding.
Helena, thumbs up? Nice.
This doesn't allow us to do that anyways,
Totally.
so I think that's really important to point out.
That doesn't
too,
prevent
yeah.
people from saying it, though.
And we,
Oh, I get it.
we should have a nice reserve sitting there too, right?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
With that, then, I will call the vote. And if the clerk would do us a roll call, please.
Mayor, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Danko,
Yes.
Councilmember Clufus,
Yes.
Councilmember Pontieri,
Yes.
Mayor Alphen.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We move to Agenda H, which is resolutions. I don't have there are none, so okay, we could skip over that. We move to Agenda I, which would be the consent agenda. Any discussion by City Council in advance of that? If there is none, I would open up the consent agenda for public comment. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on the consent agenda? Please come forward at this time. Seeing no one come forward, I'll close public comment. Back to the agenda. Any final discussion? I would ask for a motion.
I'll make that motion to approve.
The vice mayor has made a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilwoman Pontieri has seconded. Any final discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Does the clerk have the count?
The motion passes unanimously.
Very good. We'll now conclude our public participation. Are there any members of the public that would like to come forward at this time to comment on any item that was not previously discussed or on the agenda? Seeing no one come forward, I'll close public comment. And we move to discussion by City Council on matters not on the agenda. I will make one note here. I'm going to defer to council. I know you have a comment coming up, but you have a request for a meeting, so go ahead and make that now on the record if you would.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So, Council, I am requesting a shade meeting on pending litigation. The meeting will be scheduled for July 10th at 12 p.m. In attendance of those meetings will be councilors, yourself, myself, Mr. Blocker, Ms. Johnson, Mr. Coate, and also Mr. Arnold, our litigation attorney from Gray Robinson.
Everybody's calendar good, as far as you know?
I don't have it in front of me.
Just a point of organization. If a member has a conflict, is Zooming to a meeting like that permissible?
Yes.
Okay,
That
so
would-
we'll make it
That would
work.
make it better, yeah, okay.
I don't encourage it, but if we had to.
July 10th at noon, you said?
Okay, so that's set. With that, city council members, any final comments for this evening? I have to tell you, I have to thank you. This is as productive a meeting, although albeit short, which is great. I mean, I have to applaud you for digesting the public comment, being able to speak back and have a dialogue on the dais. So thank you very much.
You're thanking all of us, right?
I am.
Not just
I'm
me.
looking at you because you're next, but Nick knows I'm thanking him too.
Okay, I didn't know if you were singling me out for that praise, but I'll take it. I have no comment other than everyone have a great 4th of July, and our fireworks are going to be fabulous.
Just a couple things really quickly. I want to, again, just thank Parks and Rec for everything that you all do, and also wanted to thank Christmas Come True. They do so many great things in our community, so I'm really glad to see that we recognize both our Parks and Rec Department and Christmas Come True today. Also wanted to recognize our Employee of the Month, Monica Diaz. She did some pretty cool things with our fire department, and so really wanted to just recognize her. I think that that was a well-deserved Employee of the Month award. And finally, I would like to see what we can do with regards to the Rainbow Bridge. I don't know what the next step would be, but I think it is a pretty cool idea to do some type of pet memorial. Obviously, everybody loves their pets, right? I mean, my pets are like I shouldn't say like my son. That's not right. But
No
he
kidding.
was before I had a son. He was.
No kidding, I have a herd.
Yeah, so my 3 dogs and my cat were my kids up until 9 weeks ago. So
Let's find
yeah.
a place on an appropriate agenda so that we can move it forward.
We can absolutely do that, Mayor.
You figure it out.
Yep.
Okay.
That would be great. Thank you.
I'll ditto that, by the way. I support this idea, too.
Thank you.
Yes.
For sure. I have no further comments besides looking forward to the event tomorrow at Holland Park. That should be amazing. Hope that everybody can make it out there. And I saw some communications on social medias about it, so looking forward to that. And have a happy and safe 4th of July. Keep all the appendages on. Thank you.
City Attorney. City Attorneys.
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you so much. And City Manager, final comments.
Yes, just as a reminder, city offices will be closed the 4th and 5th. We are eager to get your packet out to you tomorrow afternoon. I did want to put a plug in about future council agendas. They are going to be lengthy as we are navigating through the budget and comp plan. And then on August 20th is primary election day. I was looking for your approval to cancel that meeting and convene a special business meeting the week after, because we have some comp plan obligations that we'll want to satisfy, and have that meeting on August 27th.
Consensus, Vice Mayor, good?
I'm good with it.
Good?
Yes.
Good. You have consensus from City Council.
Okay, have a great weekend, and look forward to seeing you all tomorrow evening for our splash pad.
Free hot dogs.
Yes.
Very good. Motion to adjourn.
I'll make that.
I have a motion from the Vice Mayor. May I have a second?
We're out of here.
Second.
Councilman Pontieri, we are adjourned.